Welcome back to Sidewalk, Skyline podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Rogers. And on today's episode, I have my partner in crime, Kevin Saunders. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the overlaps in our life. And one of the things that is really fresh, particularly at the launch date for this podcast, we will be starting another campus of New Song Church with Kevin as the site pastor, and that came out of a recent merge that happened. So welcome, Kevin.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Finally. Been looking forward to this for a long time.
Well, today, just to mix things up, I put all of my questions. Actually, I thought I'm going to ask you some questions and you can ask me some questions and we can compare notes. So I brought a hat with me and
and a nice hat that is, yes.
Got the questions. We're jumbling them here. And since you're the guest, you can pull out the first question, read it, and reply.
All right, here we go. Pulling. Wow, this is quite appropriate then. So the question says, we are merging two congregations to accomplish more. What do we know from our histories and what might happen through this blending? That's a great question, yeah.
So I think the history part, I mean, we've both been kind of in very similar ministry pursuits.
Yeah, I think from our histories, I mean, well, we worked together. We've worked together in Two Fish for 25 years, but we worked together at New Song right when New Song was just a couple years old, and I spent 5 years on staff here. And for me, that was a real life-changing, few years. It's really opened my eyes to what God was preparing me for. A lot through my teenage life and into my early 20s and all that I had no idea, and kind of really opened my eyes to urban ministry for the very first time. And so that's kind of, the history of that is just, kind of all started here, with you guys at New Song. And so, where things can go, kind of full circle now, 15, 20 years later, whatever it's been, just really exciting to see all that.
And I think as with both of us leading urban churches in Windsor, the New Song Church 27 years, Lifeline Church 14 or 15?
About 15 since we started as a small group, but a little over 14 and a half since we planted.
So we both have we're both raised in pastors' homes. Grew up in the Pentecostal church. We both ended up in Windsor. We both are avid musicians and songwriters, and we both have the name Kevin, which is that's a truly remarkable
very similar
thing. So I think when I think about our history and us merging together, it's really on a personal level. It's more like a homecoming. And we know each other better than most. We've been alongside each other for all these years. And so when I think about that aspect, I feel like, well, I just trust you implicitly because I know you inside and out. And so I think that gives us a good starting point, as our congregations merge together, and we look at some of the future things that we're going to do.
And I feel much the same way too. We've both pastored in various things and had various opportunities and stuff, but nothing has just felt the same as this. In the same way, I can trust you that you've got the right heart and you've got the right passion. You've shown longevity, 27 years, whatever. Here at New Song, that speaks volumes, just in the way that New Song is known in the community and being able to merge together into something that's already got even more of a footprint, around the urban core than Lifeline does, and to be able to kind of add on to that and then see where that's going to go together is extremely exciting. Yeah.
So why don't you tell a condensed version of the history of Lifeline Church, how that all came about, and what Lifeline Church has been about.
Yeah. Well, Lifeline was kind of birthed again out of the years that we spent here at New Song. We left here after 5 years. We had gone through the church planting stuff with the district and everything else, and were approved, but just didn't feel ready yet. Just didn't feel that call yet. And so we went to Michigan for 5 years and pastored there, and did a lot of missions and a lot of outreach, and then kind of really grew as a pastor and as a leader at that time, because I was still really young, because I'm so much younger than you. So,
you are, yes, yes, son.
but God was really preparing us and preparing our hearts and for something, and out of that time we kind of felt this heart and this passion that now it's time. And so 15 years or so ago we said goodbye to our friends in Michigan, at least on a full-time basis, and headed back over here, and really felt directed into the older section of LaSalle, which, for those of you that don't know, is kind of a bedroom community of Windsor. And we found a great location there in this old building, and we started some small groups, got some feet on the ground, and really wanted to be a church in the community, for the community kind of thing in this little area, and things were fantastic. We had our ups and downs. We moved around a couple different times. We lost that building. I can't believe it's still even standing. It should have been condemned 14 years ago when we were in there. But we had more mouse killings than we did salvations while we were there. I don't know if there's nowhere on the ACLR thing for that where we can fill that out, but that would be pretty cool. And so we went from there, and we actually held church in a bar for another 2 to 3 years almost. The bar was closed when we were holding services. But we held it at a bar in a community center, and again, just a real community time. Lots of walking by traffic, and people just really checking out what was going on. And so that continued for a while, and we bounced around to various spots in LaSalle. And due to that community center being tore down, we ended up sharing facilities with another church that really wasn't where we wanted to be in the community. It was kind of in between Windsor and LaSalle, really kind of out of the way kind of thing. We spent a few years there, and we grew, spiritually as a team and as a congregation, but just knew more and more that there was more God was calling us into. And so a little over 5 years ago, we made the big step to come back to urban missions, and basically replanted Lifeline Church in downtown Windsor. And what a difference! What a night and day change! We were in a community, and we were certainly still always ministering to the community, but ministering to an urban core community was just a whole new ballgame, and opened a lot of eyes of a lot of people. Yep. And we lost some people in the transition because it just wasn't for them. Yep. But what God has brought in just amazing growth and partnerships and families since then has just been awesome. So the last 5 years have been really on the street ministry. Literally, as long as it's not too cold or too wet, we are out on the sidewalk in probably one of the busiest corners of downtown Windsor.
It is. Yeah. It is the busiest corner. It's literally the crossroads of downtown Windsor.
And it gets really loud sometimes when you're trying to preach or when you're trying to talk, have a conversation. The ambulances and fire trucks just know that that's the time to go by.
Yeah, it's really for the bulk of the warm weather. It's a sidewalk church. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I've been down there a few times, and that's continuing through our merging together. That happens on Tuesday nights there. Yeah. And let's grab the question hat here again. and I'll pull out a question.
Well, I better shake it then.
Oh, you shake the hat.
All right.
And I'll pull out a question here. And what will the question be? Let's see.
It's like the Magic 8 Ball kind of thing.
Okay. Talk about your post-secondary education, outside employment, and how it shaped you for ministry work. So for me, post-secondary included Bible college, but it also included community college where I studied broadcasting. And when I graduated from Loyalist College in Belleville with broadcasting, I thought, well, I don't know if I'll ever use that. And now I have a podcast. It just took a while.
Yes. I don't think they have any idea what a podcast was
then.
then.
No, that's right. That's right. But I would say that with Bible college, it broadened my base of understanding, particularly around my understanding of scriptures and the church, but also opened up my mind to more dealing with psychology, sociology, culture. There was a lot of things. I didn't particularly enjoy college life all that much. I was much more interested in being out in the community in some way than holed up in a classroom or studying into the late hours of night. But it did teach me how to study, and so that was a good thing. The broadcasting, I went to community college midway through my Bible college training. After a couple of years, I said, I don't think I'm going to be a pastor, so I should probably study something else. And so I studied broadcasting. Was also developing as a musician and songwriter and having bands and that kind of thing. So I think what Loyalist College did for me was it put me into a much more of a comfort zone with the world around me. Growing up in old-time Pentecostal and then, moving into the 70s into more charismatic kind of church life growing up, I really had a strong sense of us and them that grew out of my primary social connection was the church. We moved a lot when I was a kid, and so I never was in a community long enough to really go deep in terms of getting involved in teams or, growing up alongside people for a lifetime. All of my major connections were in the church. So college life was good to help me to get comfortable being around people that weren't church people. And then some of the jobs I had, various types of employment during my high school, college years, and then...
I think the logging job is the most intriguing to me.
Yeah, working at the pulp mill, up on Lake Superior.
Kevin the lumberjack, yes.
Kevin the lumberjack. And, driving school bus and other things that I did along the way, co-vocationally in ministry, working at the halfway house as a chaplain. Some of those things, again, every time I have those kinds of experiences, it grounds me into the reality of community life. You can spend a lot of time in church and sort of lose touch with what really is important to the people in your community. So that would be my windy answer to that question. Well, let me ask you about your post-secondary education and outside employment and how that has shaped you for ministry.
Yeah, and much the same kind of story. Did some Bible college and also did some community college and some university as well. left high school and actually took off down south to Florida for a while to Bible college down there, and learned to surf. Enjoyed that, but yeah, also found it a good time of grounding in the scriptures and learning. I at that point had no desire to ever actually pastor a church. I thought, I'm into music. I love music. Let's go. So I went to study sacred music, and that was my, I was going to be a church musician my whole life and nothing more.
Yeah. And I was going to be a rock star.
Yeah. Well, I was going to be that too.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny how both of us came reluctantly in some ways into church life, even though we were raised in it.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll unpack that in some of the future questions
in a deeper
here.
question, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the college life there, I didn't complete Bible college in Florida, but came back and got into ministry, but at the same time went to St. Clair College for a little bit of music production and recording. Again, all techniques and systems that aren't used anymore, but helped grow me in the technology side of things, and also did a little more music studying at the University of Windsor, and then started online, Bible college and finishing off some of the studies there. But got right into ministry right away and wanted to be, involved in ministry and doing things, but still, didn't feel, there was just a disconnect, it just didn't fit. And most of my pastoral career has been co-vocational. There was a time of about 5 years when I was in the U.S. when I was, full-time there. Another time for, 2 or 3 years where I was, co-vocational between two churches. But other than that, I've been pastoring and working at various secular jobs. Thankful because of a lot of interest in technology in my younger years. I've had a good stint over the years at various different things doing IT jobs, and so that has helped to pay the bills a lot. And but it was more than just paying the bills, and that's why I like the whole idea of co-vocational. It's not just bivocational where one pays the bills and one is ministry. There have been just countless times that I could recall where being in the quote secular workforce has opened up so many avenues and so many opportunities to minister to people, and so many good friends and church members that I know now that have come to faith or come back to faith because of opportunities that I've had outside of the church wall setting just to minister to people. And that has been something that I've just found an invaluable part of ministry, is being, yes, it gets tough juggling careers and juggling, which hat am I wearing today, which job am I going to, but it so keeps you grounded in what you're doing and what God has called us to do.
I've known you at some points to be working like 4 jobs, including pastoring 2 churches.
Probably. There have been times, yes, indeed. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I'm probably doing that now, so I don't know. But it's always worked, and it's, I don't know, there's times when it's added stress, but there's, just when you get to that point, something else happens where you go, that's why I'm doing this. And now for the past few years, I've had the opportunity to work in a counseling clinic as well, and that's just again, not doing physical counseling, but just kind of doing a lot of the running of the office, but so much opportunity just to minister to people and have open and frank conversations with people sometimes that are at their most vulnerable and hurting times, and just to be an ear sometimes, and
before they see the therapist,
before they even see the therapist,
see you.
So it's really kind of
cool. They probably don't even need a therapist after they're done talking to you.
It's almost like they're coming to confessional. They have no idea that it's a minister sitting on the other side of the desk. They're just opening up. I don't know. It's great.
Yeah. Well, time for shaking the question hat.
Shake it up.
All right.
Here we go. Must be a small one. It's a small piece of paper. Do you remember the first time we met? Wow, it sounds like a dating game or something. I do vividly remember the first time that we met. I was I was at the first church that I was pastoring out at. At that time was Calvary Community Church in Tecumseh, and I was there. I was directing the choir at the time and doing some worship leading and doing Christmas productions and doing a little bit of youth ministry. Mm-hmm. And we were. I was up on the platform actually, and this young pastor and his wife, and I think you just had one child at the time, right? You had two at the time? Okay, yeah. Well, I can picture you guys though walking in. You've got a suit on. I've never seen you wear a suit since then.
Yeah, funerals and weddings.
Yeah, they walked in the back, and I remember being told beforehand, oh yeah, we're going to have these new church planters that are coming to the city, and we're going to talk to them a bit today. And you walked in the room, and I think I met you, and we chatted a bit, but wasn't any real connection. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I don't know, something just happened, and I think you called me after that, and we got to know each other better. But that was the first time I actually ever laid eyes on you.
Wow. Well, I actually remember a time before that.
Oh boy.
And Mark Griffin was the youth pastor at Parkwood, mm-hmm. and I brought my band at the time from Exeter, where I was, down to do a concert at Youth, and I met you and Paula in the hallway. Oh. Somebody introduced us, and what I remember at that time
I had great hair.
You had long curly hair, mm-hmm. and I think Paula did too.
Yeah,
and so that was the very first time, and then later on when we met at Calvary Community, that's it took a while for me to connect those two. Oh, that's the same guy, because I don't think you had the long curly hair.
I might have just cut it at that point.
I think you did, yeah.
Because I was co-vocational working at a golf course at the time. And wearing a hard hat every day with long hair was just nope, not needed anymore.
Yeah. All right.
All right, your turn to pick.
All right.
Shake it up.
Yeah. All right. My question is, talk about what you had to learn and prioritize to stay focused in urban ministry. So prior to coming and starting New Song Church, I was in 3 other churches as a youth pastor, and when I came to plant an urban church, one of the things I had to contend with and start to figure out was just how different it was from suburban and small town church life. And
just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. So one of the things I noticed was that it was in our kind of urban ministry, which is really got a focus towards folks from the streets. We're low barrier pastors, that we want people to be included. We want people to come into the church and to find a warm hospitality that is not measuring them by the words coming out of the mouth, or if they smell, or if they look odd or act weird in some way. And so learning to view discipleship differently. In growing up church, discipleship was very much of a classroom orientation, and in urban ministry, discipleship became much more apparent that being present with people and allowing them to see who you are, and earning the right to speak into their life and to overlook a lot of things. That became a more urban discipleship. And then I think too, also in urban life, if you plant a church in a small town or in the suburbs, it's possible to grow sizable. It's less likely to grow sizable when you are in the city core, often in older, dilapidated buildings, sometimes with a shortage of parking, and then just the rotation that so many people rotate in and out through the life of the church. So that's a couple of things I had to learn to stay focused in urban ministry, and then in terms of priorities. I had to learn how to prioritize, when to be in the chaos and when to step out of the chaos and rest.
Yeah.
Because it's both.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah. I immediately think, the first thing that I learned, I think back to the first Sunday that you had asked me to come and help lead worship at New Song. You guys are meeting in Victoria Public School.
Yep.
And I walked in with a suit jacket on and everything, and I'm like, yeah, I think I overdressed. So the first thing I learned about urban ministry is I could leave my suit jacket behind, and that was a huge plus, because I hated those things. I grew up being forced to wear a suit and tie and everything, but
I know hardly anybody wears them. So
I know, no matter
we were at the front of the line taking our suits off.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I think though about urban ministry, a couple of the things that you hit on it were very, very true. I know, again, growing up as a preacher's kid, Dad was almost like the Pope. He was the one that looked up, and what he said, and everybody came, for advice, and it was just like that automatic respect was just there because of the suit. That's it. But I think in urban ministry, you said something about earning the respect and earning the right, and I think. Our first couple years downtown in Windsor, it was really earning the respect and earning the right to be there, kind of thing. That we weren't just a fly by night group that was going to drop in and throw some food and say, "Oh, God bless you," and move along. It took a while to be trusted. It took a while to earn that respect. That, hey, we're there because we care, because we love. I mean, I uprooted my family much like you. We moved down. Close to the urban core, because that's where we wanted to be. That's how we wanted to live life, and I think that the first couple years was very, very crucial, in just being there, because that leads to the next thing. Is it's not about that high and holy figure that just preaches into people's life. It's about relationship. It is so much about relationship, because just being able to share your life with people in the community is so empowering, and it takes the time to get that respect, but now it's just they know who we are, they love us, and they can talk, and they can talk openly about the problems and the ups and downs, and we can share back and forth together. And if they're high and walking down the street, but hey, Pastor, how's it going? It's and then you go back to beating up a telephone pole, but like, Pastor, what? It's those are the moments that make you realize, this is why we're doing it, and it's not about putting us up on a pedestal at all. It's about taking us off that pedestal and just getting down. Like I do a lot of my work just sitting at the local coffee shop downtown, because I can wait for the congregation just to wander by and say hi, and just to be out there relating. And I think the relational part of urban ministry is even so much more a part of it than in any other type, because it's all about community. Yeah, it really is. So
can I insert a pet peeve here? Sometimes you hear pastors and people, worship leaders, and people involved in church life talk about loving on people. We're just going to love on them. And that's a pet peeve for me, because loving on You know, do you also like love off? You know, either you love people
or you don't.
Yeah. And, you know, loving on sounds like we're going to put on our love and we're going to just concentrate on them right now. And I mean, I know what people mean by it. It's just a pet peeve, so I promise I won't bring it up again. I promise I won't, use platform time to grind on this. But loving on people, you know, I think the reality of loving people is that we're called to love a lot of people that we just don't like. And
there's a topic right there.
Yeah. You know, to be honest, love says that I see that you're made in the image of God, and though you hurt me, offend me, say things that don't make sense, whatever, you know, I am choosing to live humbly with love towards you. And you know, I don't want to put it on you. I want to love you. And okay, pet peeve's done.
You make a good point though, because not the first time I heard that, but the time that really made the biggest impact to me was going and hanging out at Sanctuary in Toronto. Probably 10 years ago now. I was going to take a group down there, and one of the first things that they told us is, you want, during the meals and during all that stuff, you're not serving. You're just sitting at the table. Yeah. You're just having relationships with people. You're not loving on them. You're just being with people in community. And I thought, that really makes a lot more sense than me just dropping a hamburger and walking away. Yeah. You know, and that has always stuck with me. You know. Yeah.
Let me love on you with a hamburger. Yeah.
And priorities. I mean, I'll end it really quick with the priority thing. I think the biggest priority is learning how to prioritize the chronically needy with the real need. You know, I mean, we've all got the people that want to talk every single week, and they've all got, you know,
they're always at the front of the line. Yeah. And others don't get to connect.
But taking time to know, you know what, this is someone new who I haven't met yet, and your problem isn't, you know, secondary, but I need to go talk to them. Yeah. And it's really learning to prioritize in that way, and you know, and I don't know. It makes a difference. It really does.
And not to always feel guilty, because, you know, there's no way possible for any of us to meet every need that comes across our path. And
that's why we have a good team with us.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah, we got to share the load. All right. Well, back to, is it your question now, I think?
Yeah, I think I'm picking now. All right.
All right. Here we go. Extra swirl here, make sure we get a really good question. All right, there we go.
All right, digging in. Oh boy. Talk about growing up in a pastor's home. How that had a positive and or negative effect on you. We both grew up as preachers' kids in a pastor's home, and it had its negatives and it's had its positives, but I think a lot of the negatives helped to turn positives in my life, if that makes any sense at all. You know, it was a different time. It was a different day and age. Our dads did ministry different than we did, and it was a different day and age where ministry was thought of in a different way than we are. I mean, you know, that was back then, you know, all the pastors golf for free on Mondays because that was the free thing. And I still hear my dad mention that once in a while. There's no golf courses that give free golf to pastors anymore. Society has changed. Yeah. And but growing up as a pastor's kid, I mean, you see a lot of the ins and outs of church life that other people don't see, and that can really wear on you. And you know, if you don't deal with that, it can really give you a negative effect, a negative approach towards the church. And you know what, that was probably a lot of my initial hesitation to, you know, ever wanting to be a pastor, ever wanting to even be in ministry. I mean, it was only a year before I actually went to Bible college to just do music, you know, that I even decided that I wanted to do that at all.
Yeah.
Just because, Dad was so busy. Again, pastoring little churches and, almost always being the only guy, maybe a part-time secretary or a part-time associate, but always everything on him. And that's 2 services on Sunday and a midweek and programs and everything else. And living a couple doors down from the church always, So it always seemed like as a kid you were, you more than shared, your dad with the church, and we were, but then on the other side of it, it brought that Christian heritage that you just, there's nothing else that can bring that, seeing not just Dad because he was the pastor, but Mom as well, just parents that loved God, and I mean went through some incredible things and financial hardships and everything else because they knew that they were called to do what they were called to do, and that kind of upbringing has made the difference in my life and in Paula's life as we've been in ministry, and again doing the bivocational and co-vocational and small churches and not having money to get by personally and the church for years, and just realizing, seeing the strength that Mom and Dad had in ministry, really, I don't know, it was something that was just ingrained there, that if this is God's thing, then it's God's thing. And, the earthly stuff is just the earthly stuff. And and God always provided, and He always has, and continues to. And I think the other side of it too is seeing the need for some of that balance that we've already talked about, of prioritizing and in many ways of life, and knowing that, and then Dad's apologized over the years of saying, I did too much, and I did spend too much time away from home, and I appreciate that, and knowing that I wasn't going to do that in ministry, and even though I work 4 jobs sometimes, I've always made time for my kids and for my family, and made that a priority. Because I knew what it felt like to be on the other end of it, and I didn't want to do that, and I think that really helped me in ministry. So, good, bad, ugly, all kinds of stuff, growing up as a preacher's kid.
I think one thing I learned from my dad was how to be transparent and confessional. Some pastors had airs about them, and they would have the shield on, so it was all about the holy office, and you didn't have to know them, you just had to respond to their leadership. But I think with my dad, one of the things that I benefited from was I benefited from my parents' mistakes, and their weaknesses, and their vulnerabilities and their sensitivities, and seeing them just be human and struggle, and there were things that I observed growing up that I was able to say, okay, well, I don't need to respond that way. I can see what that's doing to them, and I can learn from that. And that was a positive. I think maybe a negative was in my early years, always feeling the scrutiny of others. And every church we were ever in, there was always some woman or some man or sometimes more than one that they just felt it was their job to continually come and tell you what you're doing wrong and what you should be doing. And and so you're kind of placed in this artificial situation where the expectations on you as a pastor's kid, at least in our time, I think it's a lot healthier now. And I think it also helped inform how we raised our kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's a mixed bag, but overall, I think I wouldn't want to have been raised another way. I'm glad that I was raised in ministry, and also my dad's more extroverted, my mom's more introverted and quiet, and so watching those tensions play out. And then also discovering how much alike I am, but also how different I am. And Marcia, my wife, sometimes jokingly says, you must have been adopted. You're not like your family. But the truth is, I am very much like my family, and I'm very much different from my family.
I too have family members that make the same comments.
Yeah.
Where did you come from? Who's my turn again?
No, my turn.
Oh, okay.
You get to shake the hat.
I get to shake.
All right.
Woo. All right, pick away.
If you're listening to this, we have a ball cap and we have these little pieces of paper with questions. Okay. Let's talk about songwriting. How does life in the city affect your song vision? You and I both have written many songs over the years. We've written some songs together, but we also have a whole bunch that independently we've written. But how has being involved in urban ministry affected what you write about and maybe how you write? How does that play into it?
Wow. Yeah, that I've always been, and I think I learned this from you early on, because I had written a couple cheesy songs before we kind of got together. That I don't even know if you've heard them, but there were some really bad ones. But I think one of the first pieces of advice you ever gave me on songwriting was to write for your congregation, or write for your people, or write for your environment as to where you are. And I've always come back to that. There have been seasons and one-offs here and there where you just you write for Christmas because it's got to be Christmas, or you write for this or that. But I've always found that the songs that have the most meaning, that really seem to gravitate and that people gravitate to, are the ones that are written out of exactly where we are. So seeing the difference between urban life and suburban life, is it's almost so much easier, to write songs, because there's so much loss of hope. There's so much hopelessness. There's so much need, so much despair, that we're involved in every day, and it's almost easier to write that, because when you go to the scriptures, there's just so much that contradicts that, that says, no, we have a source for hope and a source for strength.
Right.
And so I think, especially in the urban setting, it's been fantastic to dig into that for some real meaningful songs that I think have meant so much to, not just to myself, but to other people and in the congregation. What about yourself, though?
Yeah, so for me, I think I would echo everything you said there, and I would I think about a song like "Not Condemned," and how the storyline in the song, or the theme in the song, is about basically being guilty, standing before a judge, with blood on your hands, and you're clearly guilty, but in Christ there is this declaration that you're not condemned. And in the language of that song, and the kind of the bluesy riff of it and all that, it really is. It ties in so much to the people that I've cared about in ministry over the years. Many people that have spent a lot of time in jail. Yeah. And the other thing I think is that in terms of the worship songs, of the church, we both have had this advantage of being able to write songs for our congregations. And we're able to say things that in past years you wouldn't hear as many songs that really included a lament. You wouldn't hear as many songs that would speak to issues of poverty and homelessness and brokenness and addiction, and yet out of our contextualizing, we're able to write songs that can use some language, but more than just language, some understanding of, how do you help a broken person to worship God, and Jesus' example of the two men in the temple praying, and we grew up and lived through a lot of music that was kind of like the Pharisee, not always, but sometimes, and then, but to me, to be able to write a song that, is the head hung down saying, Lord, have mercy on me, I'm a sinner. That just is so grounding, not just for us as followers of Jesus and pastors, but for our congregation, to say that we can come to God the way we are, in the mess that we are, and we can ask God to help us. And
and I think along that same lines too, what's interesting to note, the fact that we do travel quite a bit too, and get around to other congregations. Some of the songs that we write that are really work so well within our own settings, sometimes I do notice in other settings that it just goes over like a brick. It just you're like, wow, that song's awesome, but what happened here? And it really, I don't know, it really makes you realize how much you do write for your own setting and your own context sometimes. Because I don't know, it's just. Yeah,
and I think there's a balancing act for both of us, and now that we're back working together, that where Two Fish is a little more of you and I and our extroverted performance side, the week to week liturgy of worship with our congregations, we can include some of the songs we write, but we can't just do our songs. We have to be much broader and include great worship music, psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs from many sources. There you go. And, because our musical identity of Two Fish is like way down the list of priorities. It's a great thing that we get to do. But it's not the most important thing we do.
No.
And all right, so back to you. Pull out a question. And I think I reversed it last time. And
I think you did.
Yeah, so you get to answer your question.
All right. Talk about longevity in urban ministry. How you have survived and stayed. Only by the grace of God.
Amen.
And only because my wife doesn't own a gun. Or my kids.
Good thing we're not Americans.
Yes. See, good point there. Good point. Yeah. No, I mean, it goes back to, a calling and a passion for what we do. There are so many days, when I can say I feel like I've had enough, whether it's been just the co-vocational part of it just wearing on me, or just the stresses of finances, or whatever it may be. And those are the times when, when you run into someone, or you have a service or a gathering, and just God does something else miraculous again. And it's the relationships that you have with the people in the urban core that just keep me going week after week after week. The conversations that just go, this is why we do it. You know, this is why, because somehow we're speaking to your life. You're smoking weed now, but you're not doing coke or meth or something else, and that's a huge
that's an improvement.
That's a huge improvement for you, and that's
you're moving along in the discipleship journey.
And but those are the kind of things that keep me going. It's not huge, cathedrals and big, huge 1,000 people congregations. It's the one and the two little miracles all the time where God just is continually doing amazing things where you don't know how it happened. It's only because of God, and that is the only reason that I've survived in urban ministry, because it's tough and it's different, and you don't get prepared for this in Bible college, and you don't get prepared for it pastoring in other settings. And what keeps you going is realizing why we're doing what we're doing. It's not for any earthly pats on the back or anything else, but it's seeing God changing people's lives day after day after day. Not because of me, but simply because I'm just that vessel that God can somehow speak through, even though I might feel like a bumbling idiot out there, and somehow it touches someone's life, and that's what just keeps me going, always.
For me, longevity, being in one place now for 28 years in Windsor, that's the longest of living anywhere ever in my life. It's the opposite of my upbringing. In my upbringing, the longest we lived anywhere was 7 years. Coincidentally, that happened to be in Windsor.
Wow.
Or I was here 7 years and went off to college. But the earlier years, and even when I first entered ministry, 2 to 4 years was kind of average stays back in the day. And so longevity was not something, I was not naturally a hometown homeboy. I actually always was kind of the just passing through, don't know how long I'm going to be here. And so part of the longevity for me was just discovering that you can stay somewhere and you don't have to leave. The call of God in life, I've always said I'll stay here as long as the Lord has me here, and if He has another plan, I'll just remain open. And there have been only a couple times, maybe 3 times in these years here that there was either an opportunity presented or explored, or me getting to a stage of feeling like, I feel like I've done everything I know to do here. I feel like the church needs more than I can give, and they need somebody else to lead, because I'm just at wit's end here. But what I've discovered is that in every time I got close to figuring out, is this it? Is it time to do something else? I learned to wait on God and not to rush. And in the waiting, I always found that either God would begin something new and fresh right where I am that was so compelling that I couldn't let go, and I felt refocused and like, no, we got to keep going here. Either that or the things that were at work inside me. I think coming into ministry, I had a lot of entitlement, a lot of sense of this is what I know to be true of the pastoral life growing up, watching it, not liking what I saw, not wanting that, but at the same time picking up some of the expectations and entitlements.
Sure,
Not that golf courses were part of my upbringing, but
No.
But things like, there's a certain mythology in church life that we grew up in, that it should always be getting bigger and better. and sometimes it was getting smaller and worse. But in those seasons of real struggle and emptiness, like the things that God would begin to shape in me gave me new strength, new passion, new humility. And so yeah, I think I'm gonna stay.
That's good.
Yeah,
I hope so. Now that I just came and joined you,
yeah.
you're not gonna.
Well,
retire
God
yet.
might change that, but
That's true.
But I plan to stay.
I'm
All
glad.
right. All right. Question here. All right, we're getting down to the bottom of the hat here.
Left.
Oh, here's a good question. How has your wife's employment given you a greater community perspective? Marcia works for Christian Horizons and has so for the majority of our years here in Windsor. And when I first met her, she was also working at a community group home in Exeter. So she's given her adult life to working in group home settings with people that have multiple physical impairments. And I even before I met her, God had begun to open my eyes to the enabled community, and so but with her working in her field, it always informs my ministry, because I am continually reminded of the barriers that people experience to integrating into community life, the barriers to communication, the barriers to being able to contribute in a meaningful way, that's one thing I just absolutely love about my wife is the passion and the heart that she has in the work that she does. Sometimes people will come up and they'll say, "Oh, you must be so special, to be able to work in that field." And if she was loving on them, then I would say, "Well, yeah, you must be pretty special."
That's not a pet peeve, is it?
No, not at all.
I don't think so.
No, but no. My wife's. I see her humility, I'm reminded by my wife on many occasions, just not even in her work life, but out in our family life, and how she totally gets the idea when Jesus, puts the towel around him and gets the basin of water and washes the disciples' feet. And so she inspires me to be a foot washer, to be somebody that is able to respond to people for who they are, not for their condition, not for their history, not for what they can or can't do for me, but they are a beautiful soul made in the image of God, and so I would say that's a big thing I gained from my wife's employment.
Does she wash your feet regularly?
No, I do my own, but
I didn't see her doing that. No.
Yeah. she has boundaries.
Yes, exactly.
That's right.
So does mine.
There's protocols.
Yeah, much the same. My wife Paula has been in childcare basically since before we were married, and just shortly after the time that we left New Song, the first time to go off and other ventures, she got a job just down the street here. You can see it through the window if we looked out, working at Drulard Place, an agency right here in the community, been here for years and years and years, and so she works in the childcare there, running what they now call Early On. It's been many different names over the years, but and so she spends her time working with parents, and parents just bring their kids and they come and they have a time together where the kids play, but the parents, a lot of times socialize and spend a lot of time talking with her. And the fact that she just gives and gives and gives to them, and is there as a sounding board, bringing in other people with other resources that can, help to facilitate and meet the needs of some of the parents in this community. And so she's just been loving on, the Drewlar community, but actually, just being a part of it. More and more and more. I think when it first started, it was kind of a loving on kind of thing, and now she's a fixture, in the community, and just absolutely loves it. Would not trade what she does for anything in the world. Thinks about going back and doing other things. Says no, I could never do that. And just so the way it so nicely pairs into church life, ministry again is just. It just partners up so well. And for me to think that, I'm the pastor and I'm doing the ministry and you're not, there's a lot of times where she's doing way more ministry than than I'm doing as the pastor, because she's just there hanging with people, and just being their friend and being whatever they need. And
I see Marcia doing that, and I marvel at it. I think, wow, she actually sometimes appears like she's more comfortable and more connected in engaging with people than I am, because we get swamped, right? We've got, we get to talk to, maybe 10 people in a row, and we don't choose them, they choose us. And but our wives, they're able to just kind of move freely and
I've seen the growth in her over the last few years because of being so integrated in this community. Now that we've been downtown for 5 years doing the ministry there, it's just, because Paula's not outgoing at all. She's very introverted and very shy, right? And doesn't talk to anyone. But sitting there on a Tuesday night and watching her go from person to person and just reach out literally and grab people from the street and say, hey, it's so cool. And I've said to her countless times over the past couple of years, like, just we couldn't do what we're doing on Tuesday nights downtown without you, because
it's true.
The ministry is really, it's a partnership between us now, and that's come out of her love and desire at her employment. That's just God's used her in so many incredible ways. So it's so cool how it all just blends together.
With the way my wife is led of the Spirit in her workplace to build up others, not just the people that live in the home, but the staff and management. I just got a lot of respect for that lady. Yeah. Well, we got 2 more questions, so all right. Final shake. I guess on the last one we won't need to shake.
Probably not.
No.
All right. What can you say about urban churches being mostly small and rare? Well, I can say that it's sad. It's sad that urban churches are rare, because when you look around, and again, we've traveled around to a lot of cities, and even in our own city, when you look downtown and you see how many old, ancient, beautiful church buildings that are there that are just dried up, and are gone or non-existent, and just the how everything in the urban core has just left. Especially Windsor's a good example of even a lot of the businesses and everything. They're starting to come back, and it's starting to get better. But there was such a time. I know when I was a teen growing up here for a couple of years, it was a lot of booming businesses downtown that are just not there anymore, and along with some of the churches that were there, have kind of moved away. it's sad that the urban core has lost so much. Both churches and so many other things that could be really influential and help the urban setting to grow, but especially things that deal with the spirit and deal with the soul. Just being left out of the urban core. I walked around about a year ago, another small town here in Ontario, and I marveled at the amount of churches downtown. I forget how many I counted now, but within like a 3 or 4 block radius, there was so many church buildings. But then, as I found out, again, they were all closed up. They were non-operational, and I guess it's just something that I think we really need to focus more on. And I'm glad, because of our denomination and and the real focus on church planting and on even on urban church planting and on different types of church planting in so many different ways. I'm glad that we have that focus, but man, we need it, because they are small, because there's such a small population to grow from, because even a lot of the people have left that have the funds, so it keeps the churches small. And there's such I know in our setting especially, and even so here at New Song too, but there's so many nomadic almost would be the population, that just constantly changing and constantly coming and going, because they just don't, there's urban, talks about, the whole thing of there being such an influx of people in such a dense area, but it's not people of faith,
Right.
It's not, and the ones that are there seem to be driving out to the suburbs to their churches, because, that's where they want to be. So I think we need to find some way, and I know we're working on it, and we know a lot of others that are working on it, but to bring God back into the suburbs, or back into the urban area, don't pull him out of the suburbs, but we need him here more than ever, because the small works are going to continue to struggle in some ways, because there's just not the people of faith that are there.
I think there's a value in small churches that is often downplayed. The Bible college dream is to have a growing, successful church with more people and staff than you know what to do with. And but the worldwide reality is that 95% of all of the churches, local churches around the world, have 50 people or less in them. And so for New Song having 100 to 120 somewhere in there, and now you guys merging in, there's a certain amount of
You got a mega church now.
Oh, it's a mega urban church, but not really. The whole thing is this: that the metrics are different when you're in the city core. We need to just continually let go of old dreams of what the church is supposed to be.
Bigger is better,
Yeah.
It's
in his book, The Grasshopper Myth.
Love that.
Is it David Vaders?
Yeah, Carl
Vaders. Yeah. He talks about the story in the Old Testament where the spies, 12 spies, are sent into the promised land. The spies are going to see, this is where we're supposed to be going. And the 12 come back, and 10 of them say, it's the grapes that are this big, and
giants everywhere,
land flowing with milk and honey, but there are giants everywhere. We felt like grasshoppers in their midst, and so Carl Vaders centers in on that notion that we feel like grasshoppers, when God's intention was to take his chosen people into that expansive place. But 10 of the 12 held back and said, we better not do it because we aren't big enough.
Yeah.
And but Joshua and Caleb said, we can do it. And there's a certain reckless, foolhardy vision that's required with urban ministry.
Definitely, yeah.
And to be able to step into an environment that you weren't raised in, that you don't know the ins and outs of, but driven with that sense of the Spirit saying, we can do it. What giants? What barriers do you want to say there is to going? Well, we don't have to listen to what all the barriers are. We have to know they're there, but we have to have a vision that's bigger than the barriers. And we got one last question. Well, you're the guest, so I'm going to let you have the last question as well.
Oh, that's awesome. It's because you know what it is. That's probably when it's going to stump me, right?
No.
Oh, okay. What are your favorite two fish memories? Well, there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
So for anybody that's listening or watching to the podcast, Kevin mentioned earlier.
Two fish.
Yes, we've been doing music together for 25 years with a variety of band configurations and also just as an acoustic duo. And over the years, we racked up a few band stories. So what are your favorite memories?
I think most of the favorite memories come back to having that bus because we had a lot of fun. We had a 15 passenger handicap accessible bus, and that was our tour bus for what, 4 or 5 years or whatever.
Yeah.
We took that around. I remember, we almost got it stuck in a Burger King drive-thru, I think, one time, where it was wedged in there really well. And
neither of us were driving.
No, of course not. That was Ho-Ho driving it. I think that's where that came about, because we had Chris there that loved his Ho-Hos, and so we nicknamed him Ho-Ho. And
that's right, Chris Holmes. That's right.
So yeah, a lot of the favorite memories were on that bus. Just taking a weekend and grabbing a bunch of guys and just going and having just a blast. As we'd go. I mean, alcohol and drug free and just the craziest, highest times that we could ever have because it was just so much fun. I one of my favorite ones was the up north somewhere. There was these hot tubs out in the snow.
Oh yeah, we were doing a retreat.
Yeah, and we'd run out, roll in the snow, and get back in the hot tubs. Yeah. And somebody got, I think Chris again, that got clocked with the little bar that you're supposed to pull the cover off the thing, and he got smacked in the head with that, I think. And it was.
Was it him or John Costi with us?
It could have been either one. They're equally as crazy.
You remember getting out to roll in the snow, but the snow was this deep. Like an inch deep, and underneath it was gravel.
Yeah. So those are good times.
Yeah,
those are really good times, and coupled though just with the excitement of getting to share our music that's so personal, and so means so much to us. Getting to share it with other people and other communities. I mean, those are just incredible memories right there. And, having the privilege of being able to record, 4 CDs so far and a few other compilation things and being able to say, hey, I've recorded music.
Yeah.
I'm cool. We even got some
Look
streaming income this year. So, I mean, we're rolling in it now. So we're awesome. What about you?
Well, speaking of the short bus, one of my memories was when we were playing a few years ago in Blenheim. And it's not your favorite memory, but it's one of mine.
But it was pretty stellar, yeah.
And we had the full band back then, and we were playing at Glad Tidings Church there, and we were on our last song, and we were jamming it out, and you were blasting away on your sax, and you jumped up and just on stage, just jumping in the air, and when you landed, your weak knee gave out.
It did indeed.
And you collapsed to the stage, and I'm there playing and singing, and I don't hear you
and I'm
singing.
not getting up.
I don't hear you singing with me, and I look over, and you're laying on the floor
in sheer agony.
And so I forget if we finished the song or if we just brought it to a close. But anyways, that handicap lift and the wheelchair that we had.
Yeah, they happen to have a wheelchair there at the church.
Oh, they had a wheelchair.
Yeah.
So we were able to get you into a wheelchair, put you into a lift bus, and bring you back home.
Yes.
That was a special memory.
It was. And then sitting in the ER with, like, I think I had bright orange hair or something like that.
You did.
Yeah, we got really no respect at all, waiting hours and hours. That was fun. Yeah.
Probably the top two fish memory, and then I'll close. I mean, there's many, but the time that we got to go to Peterborough and part of Student Life, we did a concert in the lobby one evening.
Yeah, it was like all the people up around the stairs and everything.
Yeah. And that night, as part of our set, we often will include worship as part of our set, and we entered into a time of worship where heaven and earth kissed, and it was so overpowering to be in the presence of God that there were points where we just knelt down on the stage and we disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
The band disappeared and stopped playing, and people were just worshiping God. And then we'd get up and we'd sing a little more, and we'd just kind of improvise our worship, and I mean that's probably my top two fish story.
Yeah, that was. And on that trip, I had acquired a towel from the college that became my sweat towel for many years.
Wow.
I didn't say I stole it. I acquired it. It just happened to end up in my luggage, and that was a sweat towel for many years after that on the road.
Wow.
I'm not sure what happened to it. Maybe I dropped it back off 10 years later when we went back.
Maybe. Anyways, Kev, thanks so much for taking time to just share with me today, and
been a pleasure.
Thank you for loving on me all these years, and
likewise.
Yeah, and all right, well, that's a good place to say goodbye. Goodbye. Well, I hope you enjoyed that intimate conversation with my friend Kevin Saunders. On our next episode of Sidewalk Skyline podcast, I'm going to be talking with Kathy Tollefson. Kathy is director of Global Family Canada, and one of their projects is called the Daughter Project, and deals with human trafficking. They have a residence for young women coming out of sex trafficking in Canada. And so we're going to be exploring some of the themes around human trafficking, and just hearing from Kathy on how through their ministry they're able to make a difference. So until that episode comes, thank you for listening to this one. I'm Kevin Rogers, and you've been listening to Sidewalk Skyline Podcast.